welcome all of you here this evening and those who are joining us on the internet. We apologize for being 5 minutes late here. Our first meeting overran, but we'll get going. We would like to have Jeffrey Butler come forward and give us the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Daniel will give us the opening remarks.
Follow me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Father in heaven, we thank Thee for the amazing opportunity we have to be part of this community. Thank Thee, Father, for the liberties and the privileges we enjoyed of being part of this land. Father, we thank Thee for our friends, for our neighbors, and for everyone who moves a finger to make this community better. Father, we will ask Thee today to help us out so we can approach every item with open minds, with open hearts, and that we can take right decisions. We ask the Father to bless all of those who protect us in this city. We also ask it to help us out to keep in mind that everything that we do as a community will eventually benefit us greatly. Father, we thank Thee and we ask these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesucristo. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Jeff. Do we have any changes in our agenda this evening? Anything the council wants to bring up?
No changes.
No changes. We don't need a motion on that to go forward with the
I'll make a
agenda.
motion to approve tonight's agenda then.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll now open it up to our open session, and we have a public hearing on our couple different public hearings this night, so if it's on our agenda, so we would like those to come forward and talk to us in our open session. They come forward now that are involved in on the different issues in the public hearings. So you're welcome to come forward now. Is there anyone who would like to come? Okay, thank you. We'll close our open session and we'll move on to our consent items. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve tonight's consent items.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Move to item 7A, our board commission committee appointments. We would like Jeffrey Butler to come forward. And
Put him behind the podium.
would you like to introduce yourself, Jeff?
Sure. I'm Jeffrey Butler. Live in the Northfield area. We've lived here for 12 years. My wife and I, we have 5 kids. Goodness. What else? I can't think of anything else.
Jeff has been asked to and accepted the position as an alternate on our planning commission, so thank you, Jeff. So thank you.
Thank you for the
coming this
opportunity.
evening.
Yeah.
So I have like you to consider approval of appointment of Tamara Orban and as a regular planning commission member, Bobby Joe Blake as planning commission alternate number 1, and Jeffrey Butler as planning commission alternate number 2. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion that we approve the appointments as read by the mayor.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Diana. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Does anybody object to it? That's okay. Thank you. So we do have item 8 now, the presentation of and would ask if Garth, are you here? Would you come forward? There you are.
Mayor, Council, for last year we had the opportunity to enjoy Garth being part of the Planning Commission. I call him traitor because he's moving to Cedar Hills. I don't think that's quite a strong word, so I'm sorry for that. But Mayor and Council, I really appreciate Garth's dedication, hard work ethic, but overall his really great attitude. That for sure will be missed. Thank you so much, Garth.
Thank you, Garth. You'll be missed on that. Good luck out in Cedar Hills. So anyway,
We put a good word in for you for Cedar Hills. They know your name now.
so that's move on to item 9, our public hearings this evening. Scott, would you come and introduce the first one for us?
Give me a second here. I'm going to pull up a document for us to review. I'd like to thank Marty. I know Marty in the work session was, he got us a new adapter, which makes it easier for us to project up here on the screen.
All of $40.
I think we amended the budget. It was about 50 grand, wasn't it, Marty?
Yeah, don't joke.
I don't know what happened to the other 39,960. Ask Marty that. Let me give you a little history. I think for a lot of people in the room, you're familiar with this history. There might be some people that aren't leading up to this public hearing. A few years back, our city council wanted us as staff to make it a priority to look at our roads and the maintenance and what we needed to do to help get them fixed. We initially hired an engineering firm to go through and to rate each of our roads based on a thing, what we call the pavement condition index, with 100 being an excellent road, a brand new road, and 0 being about as bad as you can get for a road. We went and we assigned a PCI for each road. And then turned around, and this was actually a little while later, we had a discussion on if we were going to get each of our roads to a 70 PCI or higher, how much money would that cost us? A 70 PCI is considered very good. So if we had every road in our community between a 70 and a 100, we would have all very good roads at the worst. Our engineering, and keep in mind that this isn't a cost estimate, it's them doing the best they can as they look into the future, that we needed roughly about $3.8 million in road funding in order to, over 20 years, for us to have that level of funding over 20 years in order to get all those roads to that level. The 70 PCI was a level of service that our city council at the time said this is what we would want our community to look like, and so that, as we've studied the road funding model over the last few years, that has been what we've been trying to accomplish. As a part of that, we decided to consider a road fee as a city. We had a study done where we looked at the traffic impact of residential, of different types of businesses. We call it the Provo model. Provo was the first city to do that as far as creating a road fee and tying it to the use of the roads. So we modeled ours after what they did. And we've, in the last couple of years, have looked at different iterations of how much money, how much, if we were to set the road fee at this level, how much would it generate? Or if we needed X amount of dollars, then what would the road fee be? And I think at one time we had over 10 different scenarios that we were looking at. And over the last little while, the city council has gotten it down to one option. We've had a public open house. a public meeting open house about a month ago. We had a public hearing actually about a year and a half ago as we were going through this. And then we've had numerous work sessions and council meetings where we've had a discussion back and forth. So through our public open house, we had a couple options on the table. We asked for feedback from the community on which ones they preferred. We brought that back to the City Council 3 weeks ago. The City Council settled on option number 2, which we then said, well, let's have a public hearing now for our public to give comment on what those fees would be and how much it would generate. As we look at the $3.8 million in funding, we have Class C revenue, which is what we call, another name for that is the gas tax. So when you go to the pump and you fill up your car, depending on how many gallons you put in there, you'll pay a certain amount of tax on that, of which the state, Utah, keeps most of the funding. 30% of that funding comes back to municipalities and counties, and that is based on how big what your population is and how many road miles that you have. So right now we collect roughly $1.28 million in gas tax money, Class C revenue. And then over time, over the last 5 or 6 years, systematically our City Council has put a little bit of general fund money into our roads. Every year that has been done, we rolled it into the base budget so that it's been an ongoing funding source for our roads. And just a side note, we bonded about 10 years ago to do a bunch of roads at one time. And that road bond expires this year. So we've been paying $750,000 out of our Class C revenue on a bond payment, which will now, once that bond is paid off, will be money that will be used for road maintenance. So that will be nice. We'll have the full use of that. We'll have the full use of that. And then the question became is what number makes sense as far as a road fee is concerned to help increase the funding for our roads. So as I've explained, we went through different iterations and scenarios, and this is where we've ended up with a road fee that would generate just over $1.4 million annually specifically for road maintenance. The road fee is broken up in 3 different ways. One is residential, so whether it's single-family home or high-density, every residential unit on your utility bill will have a monthly fee of $8.45. The businesses, the commercial, so retail and business or office space, will have a different fee based on the type of traffic, the amount of traffic that their particular business uses. So we had a study done that broke this down, what we call PM peak travel. And we take a business, and there's what we call the ITE manual. It's a national study on how many trips come in and out of a particular type of business. And we'll take a look at a business and say, okay, you are this type of restaurant, and you generally, this type of restaurant will generate this amount of traffic, and then we put it into 2 different slots. So if their PM peak is 4 trips or less, which is about 88% of our businesses, then those businesses will be paying $41.27 a month. If they are a business that generates 4 or more trips, then their monthly fee will be $236.05 a month. So as we've gone through this, we've struggled a lot with trying to figure out the best way to make this as fair as possible, but also without really doing too much hurt on the taxpayers and on the the businesses. So this is where we've settled as far as that's concerned. Now, initially, as we looked at the business community, those numbers were higher, particular to their trips and what they were generating. So our city council a couple months ago said, well, let's give the businesses a 45% exemption, similar to what a residence gets on your primary residence. So when you pay your property tax on your primary residence, you have your assessed valuation, and it's multiplied by what the city tax rate is, and all the other tax entities, the school and the county and everyone else. and then you get you pay 55% on that number, so you get a 45% exemption. The businesses pay 100% on the property tax on those numbers. And so we turned around, looked at the business community and said, if they're paying 100% on the property tax, let's give them a 45% exemption on the transportation utility fee. So that's where those numbers shook out at that point. We do, and Tina's going to talk when I'm done about the logistics of moving forward. In order to create this, there's an ordinance and a resolution that we'll need to do. There's two separate steps there. And part of it is, and one of the questions we get asked quite often is, what about if there's a business that says, I just don't generate that amount of traffic? Then we'll have an appeal process. And I've talked with the traffic engineer, and there's a way to set that up, that there'll be a fee that they'll need to pay, because we'll have to pay the traffic engineer, but they can pay that fee. We can do a study just on their business, and if they come in 4 trips or less on their PM peak travel, we'll bump them down into the lower tier. So we want to be fair in that regard, because the numbers we pull are a national standard, a national study, and so if there's any sort of local effect on something like that, our local businesses will have an opportunity to do that. We also, well, I'll get to that in a second. There are other potential funding opportunities out there for additional money to go for our roads. If you look at this, if the City Council were to adopt this road fee at $1.4 million, then our total revenue available is at 3.1, which is not 3.8. And so there's a gap there at this point. And it's like any other utility. We just have to. We look at our water rates and what we pay, and we have the needs in our water fund, and we don't fully fund our water system. We just don't. Our utility rates are not high enough to fund that. So that's something for the City Council to consider, that if we want to fund at the 3.8, then all these numbers are going to have to go up. And so we've had that discussion. We've talked about it in our open house. We've talked about it in some of our past meetings. And our City Council has said, we're okay. 3.1 is really good as compared to where we're coming from. But there are a couple things happening on the state level that could affect our road funding. Number one is there was a bill, Senate Bill 136, that is something, and this is going to be considered on the county level. But what it is there was a proposition a few years back that would take a 1/4 cent sales tax and earmark it for transportation funding, of which cities would receive a portion of that 1/4 cent. In order for that 1/4 cent to be enacted, it had to be a vote of the citizens of that county. And Utah County put it on the ballot, and it failed, if I remember, 60 to 40 or something like that. It wasn't even really close. So that number, funding was not something that we were going to be able to get. We estimated that at about $350,000 if that proposition would have passed, and if that 1/4 cent would have been enacted. So meaning you go to anywhere in the county and you spend money, this 1/4 cent is going to go back into a pool earmarked for the cities in the county, and we're going to get a portion of that. The Senate Bill 136 is the state telling the counties, we want you to adopt this, and if you don't adopt it in the next 4 years, then we will adopt it as a state, and we're going to keep all the revenue. And so they're essentially telling the counties, you need to do this. So the county, right now, this is on the county commission level. They also changed the rules that it doesn't have to be a vote of the people, that the county commission has the ability just to enact that 1/4 cent sales tax. And so our county commissioners are going to, this happened 3 weeks ago, so I don't know, we haven't talked with the county yet, see where the commissioners are lying, how they feel about that. But if that 1/4 cent is enacted, then we have now about another $350,000 that will go into that number. Also, what happened on the state level was a ballot proposition that's going to be in front of the whole state in November, which is mostly tied to education funding, but also has an increase in the gas tax on this same ballot proposition that would again put some more money into transportation funding for us as a city. So that is going to be in November. Again, it's statewide if it passes. The gas tax will go up another 10 cents per gallon, and we estimate that to be probably just under $400,000 in additional revenue. So if that happens and the Proposition 1 goes into play, we're going to be right at our 3.8 million. If they don't happen, if neither one of them happens, then we're at 3.1, and every year our city council will consider the transportation utility fee, just like we do with our water fee and our storm drain and our sewer. We'll have an analysis done as to here's how much we generated last year and here's how much we were able to get done. And if we feel like we need to get more done, then the city council has the opportunity at that time to take a look at the fee. And you have the ability to move that fee up and down just like you do any other fee that we collect. So as we look at tonight and what we're seeking feedback from our public is a reaction to what the city council has chosen as their preferred option. The city council, we're not taking action tonight on enacting the fee. We will have it on our April 10th agenda for the city council to consider the fee and enacting the fee. If city council wants to postpone it or however you want to proceed, you can give us direction later on today after we have our public hearing. If the city council chooses to enact on the 10th, we would make it effective for the first billing in July, which means we have to have everything administratively taken care of by June, so that when the bills get printed, then the new fee will be on there when you get your bill in July. So that will give us about 6 weeks of staff to get all the businesses slotted, to take care of any sort of loose ends as far as that's concerned. But that would be our intent moving forward. So I think I've covered it all. Is there any questions before we have Tina talk about the ordinance and resolution?
I guess not.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Tina. You don't need display, do you, Tina? I'll just leave this up so that people can see it when we do our public hearing.
So, Mayor and Council, just a little bit of explanation about the process for implementing the fee. The premise is that maintenance and repair of our road systems, our local municipal road system, is akin to any other utility which we provide in the city, like our water, our storm drain, our sewer service, and the users of those services pay a user fee. So the study that was done is based on equitable distribution of the peak daily trips, average peak daily trips. The fee is set based on that usage. So what we're going to do, or what is proposed to be done, is adopt an ordinance creating the transportation utility for the city. It will go in Title 8, which is where all of our other utility services are provided for. It will provide for the establishment of the utility and also the opportunity to establish a fee for service. And it also provides for an appeal process currently and an annual review process, so that the city will be looking at that fee on an annual basis with the budget, just like you do any of the other utility fees. Then in order to actually enact the fee, we will adopt a resolution. The resolution will provide for the exact amount of the fee, as you see on the table. It will also establish what we call a special revenue fund. One of the things that we want to make sure of in collecting this utility fee is that the money collected is actually used for road repair and maintenance. So we will be creating a special revenue fund. The funds collected from the fee will go into that fund, and it specifically says in the resolution right now that it can't be used for anything except for road repair, maintenance, and including engineering fees for those services. Do you have any questions? I've put drafts in the council drop box. You have a draft of the ordinance and the resolution. We have about 2 weeks. So these are first drafts based on my understanding of the council's intent and some of the issues that have been raised during the discussion over the last couple of years with regard to the fee and how the council would like to see it operate. If you have any suggestions, questions, If you want to change anything, just let me know.
Does the appeals need to specify that that's for businesses only?
Currently, it just mentions businesses.
Okay.
Currently, the appeal process is only for those businesses who feel like they might have been assigned an incorrect category. The residences don't have an appeal process. Any other questions?
Bring your mic up close to him.
Who will hear those appeals?
So currently, it's drafted to have those appeals filed with the city administrator, and he will have the opportunity to make that decision. Scott and I talked about maybe establishing a board of 3 people, perhaps myself, Marty, and him, just to make sure that there's not just one person making the decision. I have not worded it that way right now, but I've got 2 weeks to fine-tune it if that's the direction we want to go. Right now, personally, I'm struggling with, do you want your city attorney on that board in case there's an appeal, and you don't want just 2 people on there, so if it's not me, then who else is going to be
Could be
on the
another
board?
third person.
Right. So we just haven't discussed
We
that
do feel we
yet.
don't want one person making that decision.
I agree.
Right.
I think it's Daniel.
Well, I was thinking Marty.
No,
No, I'm
Marty's
saying-
already on.
Oh,
I'm
well, that's
saying
right.
I think the
Oh,
3
for
of them.
Daniel, okay. That's a good suggestion. I can change it. Any other questions?
If not, thank you. Give our thanks to our general counsel and that advice. You know, as we met here a couple of meetings, as Scott had explained, our open house, and we thank the Chamber of Commerce for bringing together some of our business community on a breakfast and a lunch. And we took input from them and see where and we're trying to be as fair as we can with the business community, plus also our citizens. So now I will open it up to public comment for our proposed road fee. So, and we will allow you 3 minutes each on whoever wants to come forward and address the council.
Do I still need to do my name, or is that in the past? Christy Belt. Start. Let's go. I'm agreeing. And before you vote for those dumb state bills and things on the ballot, make sure you check them out, because they're not usually what they say they are. Education funding.
That's the teacher in the room.
That's true. Anyone else like come forward?
I'm Debbie Hong. I support you guys completely, and I'm like Christy. Let's get going. Let's do it.
Casey Larson. My question is, 2 questions is, has the city figured out how are they going to give a 45% discount to tenant-owned businesses, since technically they are not going to be paying their property tax, the landlord is. I'm trying to figure out how that is going to happen. And then second, what is the admin fees? I've been told it's 20%. Is that correct?
There's no admin.
There's no admin fees? Okay. But how will the city address that for tenant-owned businesses?
It'll go through the utility billing. So whoever is the name on the utility bill will be the one that will be accountable. So generally speaking, if it's the tenant on there, which in most cases it is, then they'll be the ones. And if they want to turn around and charge their tenant, if the landlord, I'm sorry, let me say that again. The landlord are the ones that we have the names on, for the most part, with our utility billing. If they want to turn around and charge the tenant, that's going to be between them and the tenant. But if they have a utility bill tied to that, that's who will be paying it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else like come forward?
Paul Phelan. My son here is doing his community citizenship in the community, so he has a question he wants to ask you.
Well, basement apartments have a different fee.
So basically, a lot of the houses in the neighborhoods are now coming in with basement apartments. They don't have separate utilities, but they are bringing in more traffic into our neighborhood. So what are you going to do about that?
Similar to what Scott said, the landlord will have the opportunity whether or not they pass that charge on to the tenant, but it will be the same charge because it's only billed to one utility address.
There's not a double. Yeah, there's not a double fee.
And Easton, thank you for your question because we don't get a lot of scouts that come up and ask the question. I know it's hard in front of people, so thank you.
He was bribed.
My name's Lon Lewis. A couple of concerns that I have. I feel that the tiers should be brought back so that we have more tiers for the businesses. I'm concerned that a landlord has a great opportunity for an appeal based upon their tenants. The bill's going to the landlord and he doesn't generate any trips. It's the tenant that's generating the trips.
Yeah, so we'll account for all those as we make the connection between business license and utility accounts. We'll have an accounting for that.
I think it would be more appropriate if you had more tiers, and therefore you could justify a proper usage based upon the tier. You've got such a huge disparity between the 4 trips and the 20 trips. And a lot of businesses out there fall between the cracks, and they could be a better opportunity for more revenue and not be such a burden because you spread out the 20 trips versus the 4 trips. I think you've made an error there.
Well, if I can address that, based on the tiers, whether we have 4 tiers or 2 tiers, it generates the same amount of revenue. It's just a matter of how much you're going to charge individual businesses. So if we go to 4 tiers, those that are 20 plus are going to pay more than $236. Those that are between 4 and 20 are going to pay a little less than the $236.
And I think they should, Scott.
Yeah, and that's a policy call on how we're going to do that. But
And
I just wanted to point out that it doesn't generate more revenue by going to 4 tiers. It's the same amount.
It levels the playing field, I think, is what I'm trying to describe.
Yeah, fair enough.
The 4 trips versus the 20 trips doesn't justify doTERRA versus your accountant right across the street. That doesn't make sense to me. The tiers would make it more level to the business community. It might end up that some of them pay some more money, but I think it's justified in reevaluating the tiers. I attended the community or the business open houses. There was a description of what the proposals were, but there wasn't a lot of comment of how the city council arrived at this particular option. We've had several out there that I feel is better suited than the one you've chosen, and it gets closer to fully funding the road situation. We're hanging our hat on a couple of bills that may or may not go through to help us get to the 3.8, which the professionals said that that's the amount we need over 20 years to fix the roads. You know, this proposal here probably pushes out the process 7 to 10 more years. We're relying on additional revenue from businesses coming into the city, but we haven't seen that yet. And I know you're anticipating analyzing this on an annual basis, but it could go up, it could go down. It could push the process or kick the can down the road that we've always talked about, depending on the current council and our thought processes. I think we need to take a harder look at a permanent situation than an annual review. And I haven't heard much from the council of how you determine this. I know cost is an issue, but you guys there were 6 options, I believe, and I'd like to hear more of how you came to this decision.
Thank you.
You bet.
You know, the council didn't come up with this idea. It was over to the staff that brought this all up, and it was one of the proposals that were out there from the study. And so we just decided this was probably the least of 2 evils, I guess, on the impact of our citizens and our our business community. So that's what that's how the council came up with this one. So thank you. Anyone else who'd like to come forward?
Denise Trickler. I just want to say that I think this is a great proposal. I was talking to my almost 20-year-old son before coming here, and he's just like, so what are you guys going to talk about? And I told him the road fee, and he said, well, how much is that going to cost? I'm just like, nothing for you. but I told him, I said, it's around $8. And he's just like, a day? And I said, no, a month. And he's just like, oh, that's really good. So you have his support too.
Thank you.
Denise.
Anyone else?
Hi. There we go. So I live on 100 East, which means the road I live on is going to get...
You want to give your name?
Sorry, Hillary Sterling. And as I said, I live on 100 East. And so no matter what happens tonight, the road I use most is going to get fixed. But all the way back in May 2017, when I first heard about the funding challenges that our city faced, my knee-jerk reaction was, I'll gladly pay a little more if it means that we can, maintain what we need. And we've gone through for months. We've discussed it. I'm very impressed with how much time and thought has gone into this, how much feedback that the council has tried to get from the city, and it's been very wonderful to see a city council that is so concerned and engaged. And so I'm here to stand by that initial reaction. Let's do it. It's time to act. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll close our public comment on our road fee. We appreciate all of the comments that were given us. We'll move forward on the next council meeting and deciding where we're going to go on this. So anyway, we'd like to move to public hearing item 9B. It's to consider and adopt an ordinance 2018-90 to rezone 5.063 acres of land from R120 single-family residential zone to R1-12 single-family residential zone on property located approximately 900 East, 510 North, providing for an effective date. This is in the Grove Creek neighborhood. Daniel.
Mayor, Council, thank you so much. This is working fabulous for us until right now.
Life's good.
No, I don't want to be the one breaking it, so I'm going to try one more time. Well, we know it's fast, so it will come fast. It's working.
Turn his mic back on.
You have to admit, we don't have much bandwidth in here, so that's the other
The
problem.
$50 option would have been better.
There you go. Okay, Council, Mayor, Council, as you mentioned, this is a proposal for a rezone, to rezone approximately a little bit over 5 acres. The rezone is from R120 to R112, both single-family dwelling zones, but what's proposal is that the minimum requirement for square footage now, it will be reduced from 20,000 square feet per lot to 12,000 square feet per lot. This area right here, inside these red lines, that's the area that is proposed to be rezoned. And November 2016, this area right here was rezoned, also from R120 to R112. Let's take a look at the zoning map. This is how it is right now. So, like I mentioned before, eventually this area right here is being turned from R120 to R112. The general plan designation for the entire area, it's low density designation, which is 2 to 4 units per acre. If we go to 12,000 square feet, you will be able to fit about 3. You will need a little bit more because 12,000 square feet is almost a quarter of an acre. So that's what is proposed. Lately, we also rezoned this to allow for some animal rights to have in the zone. This item was presented to the Planning Commission last week, and it received a unanimous recommendation of approval to the City Council. Do we have any questions?
So it's just an extension of the 510 North, right? Is that where the road's going to come in?
The road's going to come through here, yes.
Okay, and then just dead end on to just there at the canal?
Well, at this point, we're not talking about the plat. This is just a rezone.
Okay.
It's an item that is coming later on.
Okay.
Is the applicant here?
Right behind me.
Okay. And what was your name? Okay. Have you have you had any discussion with Richard Guernsey? Yes. Okay, can he come up? Is that okay at this point?
Share the podium with you.
Richard couldn't be here tonight, and so he asked me to just represent his views. But I just wanted to get your feedback on his proposal, and if that was anything you're considering, and if not, he was just wondering if we should move forward at this point, or what your thoughts are on his proposal.
We've been in contact with Richard several times, and tried to incorporate his idea into what we're doing. And from our point of view and financial view, it's not a feasible thing to do.
Okay.
And he's aware of that, and we're still in conversations
Okay.
of trying to do something with him.
Well, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to at least listen to him and
Yep.
hear his ideas, since he's a homeowner in that area. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all you have for us, Daniel?
Yes,
I
sir,
guess
unless you guys have any questions.
Any other questions for Daniel on this? Okay, well, thank you, and I would like to open up our public comment period of this public hearing for those who would like to come forward and speak in favor or against this rezoning. Is there anybody who would like to come forward? If not, I'll close our public hearing and bring it back up here, and we will move on to 9C, our public hearing to receive comments on proposed Pleasant Grove City fiscal year 2017-2018 budget amendment to reflect actual and anticipated expenditures for purchase of 6 lifeguard chairs in the amount of $10,809, and funding source being the swimming pool fund. Need a motion on. That's in later down.
Is it on 10?
Yes, for the rezone. It's an action item.
So after the public hearing on the rezone, we take action.
Yeah, did you take an act? I didn't hear a vote.
We didn't have a vote, so we need a vote on just, not a roll call vote?
Yes.
Roll call vote, yes.
Okay, let me get to the, I thought it was down in
Well, is
our
it 10E
action
though?
items further there,
Well,
so.
sometimes when we have public hearings, we have the action later on. In some instances, we have the action as part of the,
I think
after
it's
the-
I think it's 10E.
Well, 9B is for the rezone, and then 10E is for the plat.
yeah, so 90 is what we need to act
Okay,
on.
so we've got to have
Okay.
for the rezone.
I'll make the motion while the mayor's getting that ready to adopt ordinance 2018-9 to rezone 5.063 acres of land from R120 single-family residential zone to R112 single-family residential zone on property located at approximately 900 East 510 North, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Lamone, Councilperson Lamone, and a second by Eric. We'll do a roll call vote here. Get the right sheet here. Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone,
Yes.
Councilmember Walker,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for, but anyway, we're good. Now to move on to public hearing 9C. There's comments on the Pleasant Grove fiscal year 20 budget amendment, which will, as I said, lifeguard chairs amounting to $10,809, funding source being the swimming pool fund, and the balance for the purchase of a dump truck and snowplow in the amount of $54,077 and being funded out of the cemetery fund balance. And Director Giles, would you enlighten us on all?
Sure, Mayor and Council. Part of our capital projects discussion this year was funding both of these items. And Denise brought up that maybe we should look at the opportunity of taking it out of our fund balances in these two accounts. The lifeguard chairs, I think we're down to 4, and they're pretty well band-aided together, and it's become a safety issue for our staff as they're sitting up above the pool and needing to move these things around. So we're going to look at purchasing 6 new ones that will accommodate all the lifeguards that will be needed. And then the cemetery dump truck, we're currently using a 1994 dump truck that probably only has maybe 8,000 miles on it, but it's really short trips down and up the road, but they're really hard trips on that machine, and we're just starting to spend a ton of money in maintenance on that, so where it's being used every day.
So just an understanding that both these funds have a fund balance, a reserve account. So this is not general fund expense. This is out of those individual funds, specifically earmarked for purposes like this.
Any other questions? Hey, thank you. As for a motion on resolution.
We need a public hearing on it, Mayor.
Okay, we're good. Okay. We'll do that down in the action items there, so we're good.
We do have a public hearing on that.
Oh, yeah, we do. That's correct. So anybody, we'd now like to open the public hearing this evening to discuss the budget amendment. Any of those who'd like to come and address the council on that, please come forward. Don't see a big rush for the podium, so we'll close the public hearing portion and move on to our number 9D. Nope.
Not yet.
The actions.
Nope. I tried to do that. But that was before the public hearing. And we'll turn the time over morning for the received comments on the proposed Pleasant Grove fiscal year 2017 budget amendment reflecting actual anticipated expenditures by reallocating money from the 1100 North Storm Drain Project into the Murdoch Drive Drain Project.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, we currently have a budget item for storm drain that is for the 1100 North reconstruction project, which is still in the plans. It's been put on a brief hold due to the First East project, some detour needs and construction things that we feel would be better to be constructed next spring. So we're moving in that direction for that project. However, we've been working with a number of contractors as there's a development that's happened at 5th East, and as that development happened, some of these storm drain improvements that were in that budget were constructed by a developer. We also worked with that developer in getting some additional improvements done at the time since it made sense while everything was dug up to get a few more things in. Doing that, we had a $350,000 budget that was planned for that project. We've now got a preliminary design of 1100 North and have estimated that budget's not needed as much. We can reduce some out of that budget. We estimate that we need about $150,000 still in that budget to finish what we need to do on 1100 North in the future. What we're proposing to do here is we have the Murdoch Drive project that you're going to be hearing. We did receive bids back, got great bids, and we're going to be recommending to move forward on that project. There's from 1100 North on Murdoch Drive going south, there's a section of that road that did not have any drainage in it. We've got a large area that drains all the way to 1100 North, probably for a good half mile, with no storm drain improvements at all. One of the things that I asked the engineers to do as we were looking at that project is consider putting storm drain up that road so we could collect it and not have to run the drainage for such a long distance. They did that. The bids came in. The bids came in at about, we estimate we need about $160,000 engineering and cost to do that project. What we're proposing in this budget is to take the excess money that we have in the 1100 North Storm Drain project and move it to the Murdoch Drive Storm Drain project so that we can complete those improvements with that project. But we'll leave remaining in that account enough money to be able to do the 1100 North Storm Drain project with that project next spring. So that's what this proposal is. It currently is calling for $175,000. That was before we got our bids back. Our bids came in better than we were expecting, and so we only need $160,000. So we're going to reduce, or recommend to reduce, the amount that's transferred to that project from $175,000 to just bring over $160,000 instead of $175,000. Let's keep the other $15,000 in the 1100 North Storm Drain project.
Any other questions for Mary? So thank you. So we will move on to item 9D, the public hearing portion of this. Got it right here.
Knee-jerk reaction.
I've got it here. For the public, to receive comment from the public. So those who would like to come forward and debate with us on the storm fund transfer. If not, yes.
Christy Belt again. How do you have, so you're going to have enough money to still do the 1100 North next year? How do you have enough money to, how do you have extra in there? Explain yourself.
Okay. When we originally did our estimate, we were going off a concept of what we thought was going to happen and how much we needed to do. We had a development come in that did quite a bit of work on 5th, from 5th East down to what's called the Mill Ditch crossing. And with that, we were able to get a lot of that work done. And so that's reduced the amount of cost, as well as the overall scope has reduced just a little bit.
So you have less area that you're...
So we have less pipe to lay in the road. And so because of that, with now having a preliminary design completed, we kind of have a better feel for where we're going to be on that project, where before it was more on a concept level of how much we felt we were going to need at that time. But some things have changed to where we can reduce that by that $160,000. We feel like we can still get it done.
Yeah, thank you.
And Christy, there's going to be a thing called the transportation utility fee that's going to be on your utility bill for about $8.
Perfect. Go for it.
So Marty, do we call out? Do we call out?
You're not using it for
But that's for
storm drain.
1100.
That's okay.
No.
So Marty, do we call out valued engineering?
Yeah, definitely. It's just actually getting down the line from a concept.
Okay. Anyone else would like to come and address us? If not, I'd like to close the public hearing on the change of the fiscal year budget and bring it back up here. And we'll now move on, and thank you for all those who gave comment on all of our public hearings this night, and those who didn't also here for being here. We'll move on to item 10A, to consider, now we're getting to the real thing here, to consider for adoption of Resolution 2018-015, adjusting and amending the revenues to expenditures of the 2017-2018 fiscal year for the purchase of 6 lifeguard chairs in the amount of $10,809, and the funding source being the swimming pool fund balance, and providing for an effective date.
I make the motion that we adopt Resolution 2018-015 as read by the mayor.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second, and we'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
Councilmember Walker.
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 10B. Consider for adoption a resolution 2018-016, adjusting and amending the revenues and expenditures of the 2017-2018 fiscal year for the purchase of a dump truck with snowplow in the amount of $54,077 with funding source being the cemetery fund balance, providing for effective date.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2018-016, adjusting and amending the revenues and expenditures of the 2017-2018 fiscal year for the purchase of a dump truck with snowplow in the amount of $54,077, with the funding source being cemetery fund balance and providing for an effective date.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Council Williams and a second by Councilwoman Anderson, and we'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
Councilmember Walker.
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Passes unanimous. Thank you. Now move on to 10C. Consider for adoption of Resolution 2018-017 to reflect the actual anticipated expenditures by reallocating money for the 1100 North Storm Drain Project into the Murdoch Drive Drain Project in the amount of, now is this?
Do the corrected
Do the
160.
one that was on here.
Do the corrected 160.
$160,000, providing for effective date.
And make the motion that we adopt Resolution 2018-017 as read by the mayor with the adjusted amount of $160,000.
I'll second it.
I have a motion, we have a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamone.
Yes.
Councilmember Walker.
Yes.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Okay, well, item 10D. Consider awarding the Murdoch Drive Street Utility Improvement Project bid to Nolan and Sons Construction in the amount of $872,465, which includes the base bid of $704,719,000. Added alternative number 2 of $167,746, and recommend approving an additional $50,000 for the project for unknown conditions and field changes that may arise during construction. Authorize the mayor to sign the notice of award and authorize the mayor to sign an agreement, a notice to proceed upon receipt of a final contract documents. Marty, would you address us on this?
Yes, just to clearly kind of give you a picture of what this project is, and it has been on our 3-year coordinated road plan. This is one of the items that we've wanted to get done. It is a combination of a water line project, now a storm drain project, as well as a street overlay project. As we're in this area, as we kind of did the evaluation, we kind of identified that the right treatment to do on this road would be a 2-inch mill and overlay, so we're milling the edge of that and then doing a full 2-inch overlay over that. The water line project will happen first, obviously. They'll come in, put the water line in, reconnect all the services, put in the new valves. That water line, we have a number of leaks every year in this area. This area up on the bench, for some reason, there are some lines that have kind of just rotted out. They're kind of past their due date, and we have a lot of problems up in this area. And so this line is one of many that needs to be replaced up there. And so it's great to get that project done, and it's great to do it as a coordinated project so that we're benefiting from getting the road done at the same time as the utilities.
And Marty, where's that from and to?
Sorry, that's, where's my mouse? This is Murdoch Drive. Runs right along the Murdoch Canal Trail, 1100 north down to 500 north. The city has owned this property right here adjacent to 500 north, adjacent to the trail, and we've been trying to figure out exactly at what time can we get that through there. We have some utilities. The water line utility does not exist through that property. This proposed plan, we had that bid as an additive alternate, and we got great bids. We were about 20% under the engineer's opinion of cost on this project. We got a great bid, and we feel like we should try to get this last little piece in that connects through the city's property. We've worked with the Alpine and Jordan Aqueducts to be able to put it in. We're right next to their easements and feel like now's the right time to get it done. So this would construct the improvements from the end of the road here on Murdoch Drive down to 500 North, Grove Creek Drive, and then also an overlay all the way up to 1100 North, and also reconstruct a little portion of 1100 North here where we're going to be able to we had to extend the water line up slightly. We have some area there that's really just falling apart. And so right now we're going to try to get some of that done and taken care of with this project. So,
great.
Marty, is there a detention basin up there right now where when it rains a lot, kids will go out there with their little boats?
There is a detention basin right here. I don't know if that's the one you're referring to.
Further north.
There's the one on
Is, that
1100
is
North.
this project going to affect that detention bason at all?
No, it should not have any impact to it.
That's
Other than
so much fun for those neighbors.
the water was still.
Have you seen the movie It? we don't want to play in there.
Yeah, the storm drain project that we're talking about taking water from is going to install a storm drain line from 1100 North to this street here, and then all of this drain water would go this way. Right now it flows all the way from up here all the way to 1100. So it would take a good portion of that, but it shouldn't affect the detention basin.
Okay, that's great. Love to see these road projects.
And as you can see, I mean, you look at this, and that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Now, I understand that's not all streets money, because we're combining it with utilities and other things, but it takes a lot of money to get these projects done, but it's positive that we're moving forward and getting some of these things taken care of. So,
great. Thanks, Marty.
Thank you, Marty. Anything else for Marty? If not, I'd call for a motion.
I think this should be Diana's.
Diana, do you want to?
I would love to.
This isn't a road call one, so you're good. So anyway.
And are we just awarding? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I make a motion that we award the Murdoch Drive Street and Utility Improvement Project bid to Nolan and Son Construction in the amount of $872,465, which includes the base bid of $704,719, additive alternate number 2 of $167,746, and recommend approving an additional $50,000 for the project for unknown conditions and field changes that may arise during construction. And authorize the mayor to sign the notice of award, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement and notice to proceed upon receipt and approval of final contract documents.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. I'll move to item 10E, to consider approval of final subdivision plat called Westwood Estates Plat C that includes 12 residential lots on property located approximately 900 East and 510 North, Grove Creek neighborhood. Daniel.
Fantastic, Mayor, Council. So we just barely did the rezone for the 5 acres. Now the applicant is proposing on those 5 acres to come up with a new subdivision plat. As the mayor mentioned, it's 12 lots located in the same property that we talked about just barely, right here. It's 12 lots, and it's the continuation again of this other subdivision. That's why this one's Plat C. Okay, so that's what we got so far. So as we just barely rezone it, the minimum square footage per lot is 12,000 square feet. The applicants on this subdivision plat, every single lot of them meet the requirement with the exception of lot 17. Lot 17, which is less than 12,000, is 10,761, which the code allows for that. This is part of the averaging. So I'm pretty sure some of these lots are way bigger than 12,000, so that compensates it. So they're applying the lot averaging part. Also, let me go back right here. This property is owned by a different resident, and they also own a little bit of this. The parcel is not just right here, but it kind of like elongates toward the north right there. And they're not participating in the subdivision, therefore the road to access it, let me see if I can get a better image. Nope, too far. let me go back to this one. You can barely see it right here. There's a dotted line right here. That's eventually for the future.
There was, we saw one. There was one on there. Keep going. That one.
That one, okay, thank you. So this is the vicinity plan. This is already approved, proposed and approved. So since these guys are not they're not participating on this one, the vicinity plan will eventually, when these guys decide to go ahead and subdivide, it will connect to right here. At this point, the only access is through 510 North. Because of that, because they're not participating, and because the property, this guy owns a little bit piece of land right there, we're going to go with something that is called the half-street concept. So pretty much this developer, Artisan Construction, is going to develop about 50 feet of the total 70 feet that is required, 50 of them with curved gutter and sidewalk, and eventually when this guy decides to develop, he will match up and complete the rest of the street.
He will do the south.
Correct.
The
south portion of
side,
it.
okay.
The south half of the road.
Yeah,
We
right.
can call it like that. Okay. Also, there's another tool that the zoning rules allowed for a developer to apply to this, which is called the staggering setbacks. So in order to provide for some different because not all the lots have the same size, not all the lots have the same shapes. Sometimes the code allows to have different setbacks. Maybe one lot only, well, the requirement setback in the front is 25 feet, but maybe some lots will go to 20 feet, closer to the street, but then the backyard setback will be increased by 5 feet. So instead of having 25 in the front and 25 in the back, they will have 30 in the front and 20 in the back. And it looks like this developer is taking advantage of that. Some of the lots are staggering their front setback. Again, it's allowed by the code, and they're taking advantage of that rule. That has to be recorded on the plat. We don't have surprise, but that's what it says right there. It says that, talks about the staggering setbacks. I don't have surprise either. They have to look really close. And another thing that needs to be recorded in the plat is, as we know, this property right here from Mr. Guernsey and friends was just rezoned. So now we allow for animals and farm animals. Since we don't want anyone buying these lots to be surprised by having a piggy in their backyard, we also got to record something in the plat right there, kind of like a notice, letting them know that they are adjacent to a zone that allows for farm animals. So the applicant worked with that, and they came out with that.
Daniel, quick question off the direct topic of this for a second. The animal rights only are applicable to Manila area, is that correct? And
to the what,
this
sorry?
section, Manila, I'm
To
trying
the
to word it.
RR zone.
To the
RR zone, which at this point is Manila area. Is that correct?
Yeah, most of it is in the Manila area.
So, and besides this right here? Really no one else in the city. I almost said. That was close.
I think you did say.
Actually, there's one.
We'll rewind and find out later.
But do they have animal rights?
There's some that would have legal
Grandfathered in.
non-conforming use animal rights.
Okay.
So.
I think
to-
there's one on
you
6th
can't-
West, there's one on.
Yeah,
on
you can't
1300.
blanket say that no one else in the city would
Yeah.
have them, because there are areas that may qualify for
Okay.
legal non-conforming use.
We even have some of those in the manufacturing zone. So we have some.
So it's just
some
almost
there.
like a case by case? Or a little more broader than that?
Well,
what-
if somebody has them and someone's complaining about them, that's when we look into
Okay.
whether or not they're legal or not.
Okay.
And in regards to this, sorry, does that answer your question? Yeah. So what the code says is that when the new subdivision abuts or neighbors property as a zone that allows for animal rights, then we need to come up with that notice, just so they know when they see their plat, they can see that, and they can say that they weren't.
And does that mean signage on their property or an actual paper notice to the new residents coming in? Or how are
These-
they responsible to notice?
Oh, this will be on the plat, and it will be recorded at the county. So anyone who eventually wants to do their due diligence when they're going to buy a lot and they look at the plat, this note will be recorded on the
Okay.
plat.
Okay.
Okay. So the vicinity plant, while we talk about this, eventually will connect through here, but at this point only goes to 510. Therefore, these two lots will at this point only have access through this street right here. Hopefully, eventually they may, when this part of the road is constructed, they may have access there, but right now the access will come through there.
I have a question about this, this
Vicinity.
visual. The gentleman, or the property that is not, I don't know why I said gentleman, it makes me mad. The property that's being now cut into with a road.
This one right here?
Yes.
But the road won't go through there at this point. So they won't have a
But
road.
what is he left with? So he'll get at least one
Three
lot
lots.
down there?
1, 2, and 3.
And then what about on the west side of the road?
Oh, that one right there? Marty, we talked about
It's,
that.
it's close to, so they'll come in and kind of realign that the road alignment to try to accommodate a lot at that location.
On that diamond.
It's really close. If you look at this lot size here,
Yeah.
and kind of transpose it
Yeah,
right
kind of
there,
cut right there.
it creates for kind of a weird building shape, but it is, if they align that just right, I think they can accommodate a buildable area for a lot on that side. It is encumbered by a number of easements, though, and I just want to clarify one thing that Daniel said. This is a collector street in our transportation plan, so these homes actually won't ever front Murdoch because it is collector. They will be required to front off the local street.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate it.
And has he been, I mean, does that property owner, they understand this?
Yeah.
Okay.
The notices were sent as well for everyone, and we hold a planning commission. Some of the neighbors show up to the planning commission. They have some questions regards to the person who owns these show up to the planning commission, actually had a chance to participate and express their concerns and their opinions, and she wants to make sure that she still will have access, that there's certain access through here, and that was discussed at the planning commission. She will still have access through there.
Okay.
We for sure don't want this to be the main access for these lots to come through here, so eventually we'll put kind of like a sign right here, something that will discourage the use of this as the main access for all these lots. We still want them to access through 510. However, this lady has been accessing, sorry, did I say lady too? This property owner has been accessing it for so many years here, and she will still.
All right. So it's actually giving her access to her property? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So
It's going to give her better access to develop, because right now
Oh.
oh, wow. To get down to the regular street.
Oh.
So when the time comes,
Interesting.
that property, they'll put in a regular road, ostensibly going to connect to Murdoch all the way to 500.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to go back a couple of slides. Also, Mr. Gerns is up at the Planning Commission, and he has another idea of how to develop this land. And however, that's something that Mr. Guernsey and the applicant needed to talk about it. When we brought the applicant back to the podium, and then we asked him if he would like to go ahead and do it as he has proposed, he said he would like to push forward. Now, what he's proposing, all this stuff that he's proposing is being reviewed by staff, and it complies with every rule. So at this point, there was no reason for us to hold it back. So if the applicant decides to hold it, it's up to him. But the staff recommends approval, as well as the Planning Commission. They forwarded a unanimous recommendation of approval for the subdivision plat and create 12 new lots.
Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel. Then I'd consider a motion for approval of final subdivision plat called Westwood Estates Plat C that includes 12 residential lots on property located approximately 900 East, 510 North Grove Creek neighborhood.
I make a motion as stated by the mayor.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, but Diana, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to 10F. To consider for approval of a 3-lot final subdivision plat called Valley Grove Business Park Plat E on property located approximately 1977 West Pleasant Grove Boulevard in the interchange subdivision of the Grove Zone.
Do you say plat F or E?
F.
E?
E.
Okay, E.
Yeah, E.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, Mayor and Council, Plat E of Valley Grove Business Park.
Yeah, the last one was E.
Yes. Okay, so Valley Grove Business Park, Plat E, has the 3 lots the Mayor was mentioning. This is redrawing the area where R&R Barbecue was, okay? R&R Barbecue will be located right here, okay? Eventually, we'll have some headquarters, office headquarters right there.
Or Foods.
Correct. And eventually, we also may have another restaurant right there with a retail pad. So we pretty much what we did for the Plat E, just redraw the property lines, and we come up with something like this. So we have 3 lots. Lot 16, previously lot 15, where R&R will be. We have lot 17, lot 18, and we're going to have a reminder parcel of about 7.3 acres. So we are kind of like prepping the path for some new things to come along. There used to be a property right here. I don't know if you guys remember. That used to be a I forgot the name of it. Storm drain easement. That was a storm drain easement. That now it's included in the plat as part of this lot. Eventually, we anticipate UDOT trying to increase the width of the Pleasant Grove Boulevard, and when that happens, UDOT will increase it by acquisition of some part of this. All that taken into consideration for future plans. So that's what we have at this point: 3 lots, 1 parcel. It also went to the Planning Commission actually a couple meetings ago, and it received a positive recommendation of approval unanimously as well.
Any questions for him?
Daniel, do we have any news yet? No? Any excitement happening on this large plat or not? Can't say.
You're not leaving until you give us a business coming in.
He's doing pretty good, actually.
I know. You're doing awesome.
I like the sign.
I love the sign.
Wow.
But you diverted the question.
Well, and we're not saying who's coming in there yet, are we? I didn't know if we were actually saying that yet.
That's so they can close on it.
Okay.
But if I say it out loud, they'll close on it? Well, I know they've announced it, but I didn't know if the deal was done. Okay. So we won't say anything yet.
Okay, Daniel, thank you. We're on 10F. Consider for approval 3-lot final subdivision called Pleasant Grove Plat E on property located approximately 1977 North Pleasant Grove Boulevard, an interchange subdivision of the Grove Zone. I'd like a motion on that.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve 3-lot final subdivision plat called Valley Grove Business Park Plat E on property located approximately 1977 West Pleasant Grove Boulevard at the sub-district of Grove Zone.
So a motion by Councilman Williams. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Councilman Jensen.
I'll take it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You missed it.
1977.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Sorry about that.
Hey, I'll let him have the next one.
Okay. Now move on to item G, to consider for approval a 1-lot preliminary subdivision plat called Valley Grove Business Park, Plat F, on property located approximately 1064 South North County Boulevard in the interchange sub-district of the Grove Zone. Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. So we just platted 12 acres right here. now's the turn for the almost 25 acres to the southeast a little bit. So this plat F, will create one lot right here of about 2.5 acres. Also, well, once we plat it, we'll be ready for a site plan. And then we still have the remainder of a little bit over 22 acres. This will create, we're very familiar with this area in the interchange sub-district. And again, we're just kind of like plowing the path for another site plan to come along that area. That's a view of the plat. I think I put it on the right direction. Yes, that's the right direction. The boulevard comes right here, and we'll have access through here and through the north eventually. So that's what we have so far.
Daniel, go back one. What about this property right here? Because that's where the road turns, right? That's where the road turns. This is where the old Noah's was.
So
yeah, the void. What is this right here?
Okay, this is like the show when you have like 3 lives and you can call your wife or whatever. I call Marty on this one.
As you can see, that's the boundary of Pleasant Grove and Linden.
Right.
That kind of goes and bisects that property. But so St. John Properties owns just a little bit over the Pleasant Grove Linden border there, and then a separate property owner owns that corner piece.
This one right here?
Yes. So 1300 West, if you remember, used to extend directly up to and come straight through
Correct.
here. When they came in and realigned 1300 West, it bisected that property there and created 2 parcels, both in Linden, and so it's much smaller parcel. That Linden, we've been in conversation with them. They're actually in, I don't know if they've postponed their development, but they've come in with a concept of developing that piece on the corner. But
Okay.
so it's out of Pleasant Grove. It's a separate parcel owned by a different property owner.
Right. Okay.
We have had some meetings with Lyndon, correct? Yeah.
Does Daniel know anymore? Do you know anymore? About that parcel? Okay. It's not our call, but just a question.
Any other questions for Daniel? If not, I'll call for a motion for the one-lot preliminary subdivision plat.
I'll make that motion to approve a one-lot preliminary subdivision plat called Valley Grove Business Park Plat F on property located at approximately 1064 South North County Boulevard in the interchange subdistrict of the Grove Zone.
We have a motion from Councilman Walker. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Councilman Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to H, to consider for approval a 40-lot condominium plat called Somerset Court Plat A on property located approximately 400 west, 400 north in the transitional sub-district of the downtown Village Grove. Daniel.
Mayor, Council, let me give you a little bit of background, if I have a couple minutes, about this property right here. Recently, we rezoned that property as well. It used to be on the commercial sub-district with higher density, and we rezoned it and made it part of the transitional sub-district. So these colors are the same now. And when we did that, we kind of like reduced the density a little bit. So a couple of years ago, in this part right here, you could have done high-density apartments, about a little more over 200 apartments. We later rezoned it to go to 60 and townhomes, and then we reduced that even lower to 40, and that's what the applicant proposed. So this is custom craze. First, the applicant subdivide this big parcel. Actually, it used to be one parcel all the way from here to right here, with frontage here and frontage right here, and they subdivided it. So they're going to keep the front as custom craze, and hopefully for retail uses, and then they cut so they can have the back portion, which is 4 acres, dedicated to residential uses. This item for the site plan already went to Planning Commission to receive not a recommendation of approval, but final approval as the code calls it, is the planning commission, the one who gives final approval on the site plan. So this item already went to planning commission and they received a positive approval. They approved this item. So here's a little bit of what we're doing right here at this time is the condominium plat, because those 40 units will be, hopefully I say this right, condominiumized. Will be condominiumized. So they went through that process. Their attorney worked on the CCNRs and the way to work with the condominium according to state law, and it does meet the state law according to the review that we did. Okay. Again, this I'm going to give you a little bit of extra information for the site plans. Every unit, each one of these units will be a 3-story building. 3-story unit. You will have an unfinished basement, then you have 2 stories. In regards to the architectural standards, the colors and so on, it was reviewed by the DRB, by the Design Review Board, during a couple meetings. We try to always make sure that that is built up to code. And again, it went to Planning Commission and received the recommendation. No, sorry, the final approval. Here's what the
Daniel, can you go back one?
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why it didn't hook up with this stem here, or is it because the property owners didn't want it? Okay.
It doesn't really hook. It doesn't really hook in, as far as I can see.
I'm going to go a little forward, and we can see a bigger side plan of it. Okay. I don't know if that's a visual image, but that's kind of like the site plan. Okay, this is not the plat, the condominium plat. This is the site plan. That's how they plan to do it. It looks like they want to do their own development by itself. Actually, they're going to go with a 8-foot concrete wall along right here. For some reason, the code also requires something like that, so they're going to do that. Now, there's something to brought up here to City Council, is that the termination of this street right here of 200, okay, because the development, they're not going to have constant use of this road. They will kind of put right here a crash gate, and it will be kind of like an emergency use only. The main access will be through 400 North, but our engineering standards call for the termination of a street to be in the fashion of a cul-de-sac. Okay. Now, when we do our cul-de-sac, the radius of the cul-de-sac is about 112 feet, something like this. If we do something like that, we'll eat up a lot of these parking spaces for the retail use. That we, from staff, is my recommendation that we keep these retail uses on the front. They will still be able to function because they still have plenty of retail spaces, but eventually they would like to also diversify that building into multiple different commercial units or retail units, and at that point we may need these spaces. Now also, if you guys realize, engineering in the past, instead of finishing all the streets in a cul-de-sac, we have used an alternative design for end streets, kind of like what we did right here. We did kind of like the hammerhead, sorry, thank you for the help, for like the hammerhead termination. So since it's a deviation from our standards, staff is requesting the City Council to take that into consideration and give us the approval to use the termination of a hammerhead, which is already designed for the termination of 200 North for the street. Okay. Again, this item is for the condominium plat, but I may be able to answer some questions in regards of the site plan if you guys have some.
So Daniel, I think Diana's got the same question. Let me point here. So this road will come in here and end, or will this keep going so you can access it through here, or will it be one of those crash gates?
It will end right there.
It'll end right here.
That's an 8-foot wall. You said
it'll just go into an 8-foot wall.
Correct. It will end. Usually when we continue the roads is when we have a vicinity plan that requires for something like that, and then we talk to the neighbors and try to figure out, this right here is a private road.
It's a
private road.
So clarify one thing on that. So that stem road there is on a flag lot.
Yeah.
The 3 owners that are on that flag stem currently equally own that. And so if we were to do that, we don't really have anything in our standards that allow for more access off of a flag stem. Right. We allow up to 3, and so they wouldn't be able to connect there, because then it puts a lot of additional potential traffic on a 20-foot wide, narrow, private stem road.
That was the reason for the question.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's why it's not connected.
Yeah.
through.
Okay. Good.
Are they okay with an 8-foot wall?
Do you know what? If the code says that if they're not okay with it, they can work together and bring a letter to the staff, and they can eliminate that or reduce the height of the wall.
Like it's a cinder block.
Correct.
Cinder block.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's let me see if I haven't. It's
precast.
It's precast. It's the
But still, it's 8 feet.
Yeah. So if the neighbors here are okay with it, and they can work with the developer, and they decide to lower that,
Okay. That's just between them.
that's between them, and staff will be completely okay.
Did they come into planning commission?
The neighbors, yes, they came in and they expressed their concerns, and which are many in regards to, obviously, they having a new development being built in their front yards, pretty much, and there's concerns that we try to solve. But at this point, what we have to, as a staff, just follow the code that is already established, and the proposal meets the code that we have.
Are there any residents here that would like that are? We can't even ask that.
Yeah, and again, let's just keep in mind that this is
right.
Let's keep in mind that this is the condominium plat, so pretty much this is already been approved by the planning commission. We're just trying to create a new plat for.
Okay, and help me with ownership when you condominize.
I work on that word a lot. Yeah.
I know. Did you see? And I just rolled right up. No. So it's one owner. So the landowner will keep his ownership. No, these are going to be individually owner occupied.
Correct.
Well, not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily, but they will be sold separately. They will be sold separately. Correct. So
they will be rented.
Right.
Correct. They will be sold separately. Each unit will be sold separately. The driveways and the patios will fall under something called limited common ownership, and then the rest of like the streets, the parking. It's similar to it, but we don't have code for PUDs. Okay. So it's a condominium plat.
Okay. So each one of them will get a utility bill.
Yeah.
Yes, they will.
You kind of linked those, didn't you?
Yes, they will. In regards to, again, this is the plat, but not the site plan, but even for parking, we even, the code doesn't require for that, but we require some extra, with working with the applicants to get some extra parking for visitor parking and so on.
So were there any green space requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, here it is. Let me see if this can help us a little bit. Give me 1 second. I think I put it at the beginning. So this area for the downtown, it requires double the trees that we will require at the Grove. So I was laughing today because I was looking at this plan. There you go. It's completely landscaped. With again, whatever requirements we have at the Grove, double that, and that's what we apply in the downtown. So yeah, plenty of trees.
So they're shared backyards, front yards.
Correct. Some of the areas will have limited common ownership. Some others will be completely common ownership.
Okay.
And are these garage underneath and then 2-story above that, or?
No, the garage is on the main floor.
Main floor.
Then you got the unfinished basement, and also another floor.
So
on top of the garage.
but you said 3-story.
Right.
2-story above the 2-story above the grade.
2-story above grade.
2-story above grade.
Oh, okay. All right.
2-story above grade. Thank you for the correction.
Can I clarify one thing? I think it'd be helpful. Well, this is no different than Pemberley, Rockwell, all of our condominium plats. It's a condominium project, common area owned by all the owners of the units. They equally own and maintain all that. They'll have an HOA, all of that stuff. I think it's important. If you can go to the next slide, Daniel, that shows the temporary dead end or the permanent dead end of 200. Okay. So we don't currently have in our ordinance an ability to permanent dead end a road with anything other than a cul-de-sac. And we just want to make sure that it's clear that what we're, in addition to approving the plat, we're also approving the permanent termination of 200 North at this location in this fashion. We did require them to address all drainage issues. They're putting curb and gutter all the way around this side and this side here. They're providing easements for the turnaround on the property that is owned by Costume Craze. So we've accommodated for everything that a cul-de-sac would accommodate, but this is something that we're proposing to do differently than we typically would. It's not something that we're amending the code or changing our standards or anything. For this specific one, we're asking for the City Council to also approve this concept for the termination of 200 North, if you agree with that. If you didn't agree with that, we could go back to the developer and say, they said you have to dead end it how we require that, and that's with the cul-de-sac. And that's the picture that Daniel showed and the impact that would have to Costume Craze. There would be quite a significant retaining wall required. There's quite a bit of depression here into the building, so a pretty good cul-de-sac here. So it could be done, but it is very impactful to the project and to the parking of that business. And that's why we kind of came up with an accommodation that we felt met all the requirements of storm drainage and improvements for an adequate turnaround, but yet still accommodated, I guess, the dead end of that street. So
Fire and police are okay with eliminating the access?
We're not eliminating access, but we're
well, and then the I don't know the name of this development right here, Diana or Sid.
Isn't that the Grove Crest? Is that
the Grove Crest Villas? So I would think that road should go through. So 200 North should go through just south of that. That from a safety perspective, Chief Thomas, is that okay? And does that make sense? So if
that the image
look at my map, but
is that, you want me to bring another map?
Well, or like a Google map. Do you have a Google map?
That won't be okay. You want a bigger?
A little bit further out. What I'm wondering is
I'm gonna come out of the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
And bring, okay.
Yeah. Just so I can just kind of get clarification.
We all have a little fear of you exiting out of
to go along,
just north of Costume Craze.
Yeah. So at some point when Costume Craze was extended, and if you look at actually trying to get that road to turn and go up to 400 North, that's what you would probably expect.
Or 200 North, you mean?
200 North to turn and go north and connect to 400 North.
Oh, yeah?
That would be more of a concept that would be realistic. It's going to be very difficult to make something like that happen just because the building's in the way, even as it's currently constructed, without impacting the adjacent resident on the north side of the road there, and realigning that. And so I think some decisions were made a while ago that road kind of is going to terminate at that point. And that's why when this has come in, we've said, you need to make this a permanent termination of that road because it's not going to go anywhere further after this point.
Okay, I'm good. Daniel, you're okay. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
Anything else for Daniel?
How many total units would that be then?
40.
40?
Okay.
40 units.
40 over, and how big's the property?
4 acres.
Okay.
So it's 10 units per
110. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to call for a motion then, if there's no more discussion, on a 40-lot condominium plat called Somerset Court Plat A. Someone like to make that motion?
Mayor, I make a motion for approval of a 40-lot condominium plat called Somerset Court Plat A on property located approximately 400 west, 400 north in the transitional sub-district of the downtown village zone.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move to item 10I, to consider to adopt Resolution 2018-018, authorize the mayor to sign an amended agreement with Big D Construction regarding the public safety building construction by establishing a guaranteed maximum price and the schedule of construction, providing for an effective date.
So we talked about this in the work session, and this is the action in order to settle on our guaranteed maximum price by amending our agreement with Big D Construction. So the number that is in the agreement, let me pull it up, for the guaranteed maximum price is $11,953,670. And then the scheduled completion, and by the way, all my presentation that I did is now in the Dropbox. I forgot to put it in earlier today, so I have downloaded it if you want to see any of the documents that I've gone over. The scheduled completion, now I think when Clint stood up, he said January 14th was going to be substantial completion. He's been telling us February 13th the whole time. I think he misspoke today.
Yes, he did, because he said it was going to be 30 days later, but then he just said it was 10 days later. So originally, so you are correct.
So what's in the agreement, just so we all understand, substantial completion is February 13th. Final completion will be March 8th. So that's what the agreement states as far as substantial completion for both buildings. They're planning to have substantial completion for the fire station in early December. But the date that we have in the agreement is for both buildings to be done by February 13th.
Do we need those figures in the motion or not?
No, they're already in the addendum.
Okay, so
they're in the exhibit. I just wanted to make sure you had that. But you just need to pass it as constituted as it's listed here.
Okay, Mayor, I make for a motion to adopt Resolution 2018-18, authorizing the mayor to sign an amended agreement with Big D Construction regarding the public safety building construction by establishing the guaranteed maximum price and the schedule for construction and providing for effective date.
A motion, do I have a second? Second. A second by Councilman Walker. Be a roll call vote. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Ramon.
Yes.
Councilmember Walker.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
Passes. Okay. Thank you.
We have some Public Safety Building Committee members here that we would like to thank for all of their work.
We stayed and didn't get the information we wanted.
Oh. She was here.
So noted.
Kira was here.
So
you can call her.
I'll call you later.
Okay.
Now move on to item 10J. Consider the adoption of Resolution 2018-019, authorizing the mayor to declare a 2005 International Apotec vac truck as surplus and directs that it be disposed of according to the city's policy for disposing of surplus property equipment and providing for effective date.
Mayor, Council, one of the very important pieces of equipment that we use at Public Works is this vac truck. If you've ever seen us on a water leak, you've seen this big truck with a big tank. It's a hydro excavator. We use it to get down to leaks really fast, and it's very important. This is a 2000. It vacs up. You spray water, and it vacs up all the dirt and whatever else you can loosen up. So, very important piece of equipment for us. Our water crew has been using this for 13 years now. It's heavily used in our city, especially with all the leaks that we deal with. And it is time to kind of rotate that through. We've already been moving forward in our vehicle budgets with sewer and water to be able to acquire a new piece of equipment. And so we would like to surplus this equipment. That new vac truck should be here in, I believe it's the first to middle part of June. It's very similar to the storm drain vac truck that you've seen before is the new one that they'll be getting for the water department. It'll have a bigger area for storage of water, allow them to be a lot more efficient. Right now they have to dump that thing multiple times during a leak, and it's time consuming as well. It's just getting old and worn because it's so heavily used. So this is the surplusing of that 2005 vac truck.
Any questions? They're good. They suck up cats, chickens, unwanted dogs, and everything.
Not typically on water leaks. That's our storm drain guys.
It should be in the Strawberry Days Parade, though, the new one. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion for Resolution 2018-019.
Mayor, I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2018-019, authorizing the mayor to declare a 2005 International Aquatech vac truck as surplus and directs that it be disposed of according to the city's policy for disposing of surplus property and providing for an effective date.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Councilman Anderson. All in favor? No, it's a roll call. No, this isn't a roll call vote. This is just a ask for a vote.
Well, it's a resolution, yeah.
Okay.
No, you didn't. So
We
we
still-
good?
We're good.
Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
think I saw one, so I just,
Sorry.
no
But we
problem.
still need to do an all in.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We are now down to item number 11, and to continue our work session items.
So the last item on our work session is the budget information that Denise has put together for our upcoming fiscal year 19 budget. This is all in relation to the general fund. So we'll have her present that to you where we're at, and I'll post it up on the screen here.
So, got the information out in Dropbox today, but Scott's gonna show it up there. So, this is known as the one-pager for those who are new. We do that for the general fund. And so, just on the left, pretty much what our new revenue is, and we're looking at about $451,000. I broke it out a little bit about where those changes are, the taxes. Most of that is sales tax, which we're estimating to be about $403,000 more than our budget was last year. And then the other ones are pretty small as we fine-tune those revenues. And so you'll see that our admin chargeback, we actually have the admin chargeback. It's about $2,020,000 right now, and that's charged to the enterprise funds. And we do that allocation so that they can pay their percentage of services that are generally paid for in the general fund. An example is accounts payable, treasury, finance, the administrator, those type of things. And so we'll be making a slight change because that's based on all the departments that provide a service to them as all those other budgets go up. So we're making a slight change. We haven't changed this in a couple of years. So just doing a 1% there. So if you go on the other side is the uses that we're proposing to use for that. As always, our biggest expense generally is personnel. We've actually factored a 2% increase for the employees, and that would be full-time and part-time. And then the benefit portion is generally mostly on insurance, and we're budgeting for a 10% increase. And the last I heard, we haven't gotten those numbers back of what our medical increase will be. And so we're still waiting those, but a 10% increase has been placed in the budget right now. And so as we move down the list, we're proposing a full-time custodial person, some employee retention, which would be a study for the administration, the library, and community development employees. We have done fire and police, and I want to say
Public
Works before, and the cemetery and parks before I came, but we did fire last year and police the year before. So we're looking at doing, like I said, admin, the library, and community development.
Have we not done rec yet? I thought we did rec.
We did rec part-timers probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Where we had a study done specific to them. And that kind of predated the more intensive study we've been doing by department.
Okay.
So
they're probably up soon.
Yeah. So we've been trying to look at one every year.
people.
And then full-time dispatcher is on the list. And then if you remember last year, we actually provided the library with a part-time person. And we would be proposing to move one of their librarians from part-time to full-time. And so that's just the difference of what we allocated to them last year.
Two part-time last year or just one part-time?
We did one part-time.
Yeah.
So they requested a full-time person.
Yeah.
If you remember when we were in this stage of the budget and we had a part-time code officer and the council wanted the full-time code and the library to be part-time with the potential that we'd bring it back this year and move that to a full-time position. So it's already partially funded as
Yeah, so I'm just, the difference would pretty much be a little more for base wage and then your retirement and insurance costs for a full-time employee.
Can I ask another question?
Yep.
How did you formulate to get, obviously you worked with the department directors to formulate this, but is that how you came to this, of moving these up
Our
and some down?
process is Denise asked for supplementals from the departments on both operational and on capital projects. And so they submit a list. We sit down with each of the departments and we talk individually about what their priorities are with what they've submitted. And then eventually Denise and I sit down and talk through what we would like to recommend to the city council. The custodial was something we asked for last year as well. That position was not funded at all last year. And we talked about the librarian and the dispatch. So once we get through this, we actually have the sheet that shows the requests operationally for the personnel from the departments, and then also the capital that we're not recommending funding. So that if the council looks at that and says, we would rather the money go somewhere else, you can see what the other requests were from the departments. And then you can move it as you choose to.
So the last one is some operational adjustments. Line item for custodial supplies as we bring on the 2 new facilities, those type things. And so 5,000 of that is for those adjustments. The other one is we've been looking at the cultural arts budget, and we do a transfer from the general fund to them. Looking at that with our current organizations that we have in there and some other demands, then we need a little bit more money there. And then when we do a 2% for the employees in the recreation center or the community center, then that would increase their subsidy to help cover that. And on the April 10th meeting, we'll actually look at revenues, and we'll kind of talk about how those will play in to some of these things too.
You say rates or revenues, you mean rates?
Yeah, rates, sorry, utility rates and fees that we'll look at on April 10th. But for right now, these are, all the revenue on that side are things that the departments, for the most part, don't play a role in. Sales tax, franchise fees, those type of things are mostly the revenues that I have here on the left side. None of the recreation fees or type of things like that. So let's just go down on the same page while we're here. So this money, the $475,000 that we're showing there, is actually the revenue over expenditures from the fiscal year 2017 fiscal year, and those were audited numbers, and this is the amount that we feel like that we can use and still keep the general fund at around our anywhere from 2.2 to about 2.4, but this would put us at about 2.3 by doing the 475. So Scott shared earlier that we feel like we need to take 400,000 for our public safety facilities. And then just some other things that we have there is the water heater at the swimming pool. Police for a traffic radar sign that's a portable one that they can move around the city. And I think that was on our list last year also. Some recreation center furniture. I think it'll be in the lobby, is that right, Dion?
Lobby.
In that area. Engineering vehicle, Marty has a couple of engineers that are in need of a vehicle.
That part of the lease, you just roll in lease, or is that separate?
This won't be a lease, we'll buy it outright. We've done some parks and recreation in the past. And then the public works remodel is they're moving forward. They're going to do some remodeling to accommodate employees and just to try to make the area a little more welcoming there. So, and then Spillman, this would actually be part of a 3-year plan for us to get some software that the police department is in need of. And so the chief had talked with Spillman that we should be able to do this over a 3-year type of plan and be able to implement that. So that will be good versus the whole outlay. I think it was over $36,000. And then we still have a little bit that we haven't allocated anywhere that we're just showing as a contingency right now. And so as we go to that other list and as we're talking through the budget the next little while, we still have some things that we haven't allocated anymore. Any questions on that?
Yes.
Okay.
So on the rec center furniture, have we discussed any other ideas? I know the current furniture is just totally it's thrashed, right? It's beat up on a daily basis. Have we thought about any other ideas of putting something else out there, or more tables, or? Okay.
We do have quite a few people who use those. We've looked at foosball. We could do a few things, but right now what's in the budget or what we're recommending is to do furniture. If the council would rather see something else in there, then we're open to that feedback. If you want us to look at alternatives, we'll kick it back to Dion when they can look at alternatives besides furniture.
Foosball may be good in that rec center. That's, I know from a business perspective, that's what my employees like. They want foosball tables. So we ended up buying a foosball table to just a little downtime. But I can see the kids and the high school students and liking that. So anyway, just a thought. That's not a bad idea. Rather than just couches.
I was just thinking same thing, and then some maybe harder, maybe I don't know, longer stools or
concrete blocks or
something. Right? Something that lasts a lot longer, because it gets thrashed so quickly that I think we can.
Even metal tables with metal chairs, just round,
Okay, so what we're hearing is you don't want furniture, kick it back to us, and we'll come back with a different recommendation.
I just don't think, I think 4,000 seems like a lot when there's other needs at the rec center. The couches, I think, are gross because people get done working out and they're sweaty and they go sit on them, and then other people go sit on them, and then they get, I don't know. I like something that we can wipe down and clean more easily and that it doesn't wear down, because the couches just look thrashed after about a year, and they're expensive to replace. Anyway, I'd like to see a harder material, like Diana's suggesting, that's something metal. I mean, it's really not a place where they go and sit for like an hour at a time. From what I understand, they might sit down for a few minutes while they're waiting for in-between games. But I think 4,000 is too much to spend in that area.
Yeah, because we have other tables and chairs in the lobby area, and we could just get a couple more sets of those.
Or like
and then maybe
longer bench.
We could have room for a foosball table if that's something we want.
Another thing more a foosball is that going to be annoying to like the front desk people because it's kind of echoey, and if they hear that for 8 hours a day, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It will be a little bit on the other side of the lobby.
I guess we have basketball. You know what? That's a good point. Bring it on. Bring ping pong, foosball.
Weights dropping on their head all day.
Thank you. Good point. Good point.
We'll
Just trying to be sensitive.
We'll bring that back in a couple weeks.
I think it'll be
So
fun.
the next thing we have is that Scott shared with you is we just have the other budget requests that were made, and Scott will bring up, and it's included in there. I think it's called revenue update too. So these are just some other things that were brought to us, and as Scott said, that we visited with a lot of the departments and visited with them about their need and those type of things. So we have the cemetery full-time position, a fire part-time administrative assistant, the library requested 2 full-time librarians. The library wanted 10 laptop computers, which My understanding is that would be an ongoing need. I don't think that was a one-time ask. And then a full-time police officer.
When you say an ongoing, is that 7,000 annually?
Yeah, that would be something that, or at least every couple of years.
2 to 3 years usually for a laptop.
Yeah, we'd be needing to be doing
But
that.
would it be at full cost every 2 to 3 years, or once you have the new ones, can you trade them out, like get on a lease program or anything? Is the full 7,000 every few years?
Well, we do the lease for the computer lease for the city, and so maybe it could be bigger, part of that bigger plan. We do the servers, and they're on a 3-year rotation, and so possibly something like that. But the initial outlay would at least be that.
Generally, I think what's the request is generally we take our surplus computers after 3 years.
And that's
we
what,
take the best of those, and we have them go to the library. So they're getting 3-year-old computers.
So we're talking laptop
What I'm asking
here.
is, hey, we wouldn't mind some newer computers.
Just for staff.
No, I think.
No, this is for
Public use.
public.
Yeah, I think this is for public use.
Instead of towers, they want to go to laptops?
Well, why laptops? Laptops are more expensive and probably there's a theft. I would have
Was it a laptop request?
They were laptop computers. I'll do a little bit more research on that, because the other thing is I thought they wanted to have the flexibility to be able to use them for classes and different type things. So I'll do some more research about and look at Sherry's request for that.
Yeah, maybe the majority desktops and some laptops, because it's going to be cheaper. Desktops are cheaper than laptops.
I'll look at her request and see exactly what what their use was. And then I won't go over this whole list on the capital, but these were some of the other needs. Some big ones on there, as you'll see, that we've seen in the past. The irrigation system at the cemetery. And a lot of our other ones, we have quite a few for parks and the recreation facility. And then when you move towards the bottom, the numbers even get bigger. We have a couple of items that Dion is looking at doing some costs on. We just don't have anything right now, is maybe providing more parking at the recreation center. And the downtown park renovation, which we talked earlier about when the public safety was being talked about, there's going to be some needs there. And so we have the tennis courts on there resurfacing, and pickleball courts and those type of things. So these were the other needs that were presented.
I'm curious. Oh, go ahead, Mike. You first.
Now, the rodeo ground bleachers, is that new bleachers? Is that resurfacing the bleachers? Is that
John, do you mind taking that one?
for the whole thing?
North
Which side
or
is-
section?
Which side is the old section?
Haven't they been replacing certain bleachers?
Probably the north, right? North end, kind of where the new stands are. That's where the lady fell through last time.
Would redesign what we currently have, so.
So it wouldn't give me any more leg room? And I got short legs. Can't even imagine, Mayor.
But you're going to say splinters.
What?
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand I have a booth now. Show me where that is.
A suite.
Yeah,
And a
sweet.
load.
Yeah, sweet.
All right, that's great. Eric, sorry.
No, so are these like in order of, they've just been thrown in?
They've just been thrown in
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah, there's no order in there, so.
And then up above, I'd like us to maybe look at, and this is just me, maybe the fire part-time administrative assistant, because I know chief and them need help there, so.
You're talking about up here, Eric?
Yes.
In the operational, okay.
23-4.
What would you have switched out?
Yeah, what would you?
I don't know, I just said I would just like to entertain to look at that. I don't know if, switch out, but I think there's a need there, so.
There
Something
is.
for us to think about and to.
So what we'll do is take a look at this list. You can send us an email if there's some things that you want specifically considered. We can bring that back for discussion in a couple weeks. That as you look at this and say, let's talk a little bit more deeper. We might want to do this instead of something else.
Go back to the.
Because there's a lot on here. And
Go back one.
oh, to the other one.
Oh, back to the revenue uses and sources.
Zoom out a little bit so I can.
I'd love for you to just go find that magical tree and just find the 23.
That's what we were alluding to. Yeah, we would love to fund that position too, but, you know, sometimes there's just choices that have to be made. But I guess to our point, as we present this to you, take a look at it. We still have time. I mean, we'll be adopting our tentative budget the first meeting in May. We'll be doing the final budget in the latter part of June. So there's still time. But if there are some things on there that you're looking at that you'd want to have reconsidered, let us know. But then we'll just put it on the agenda for a group discussion, so to see if everybody else agrees or doesn't or whatever.
And this is, I didn't see this in the packet. Is this in the?
It is now, yeah. I put
you
it
just
in.
did, okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah, we put it in there this afternoon,
Okay.
or early.
Scroll
might
up
be in there
and-
twice.
Scroll up and just say what were the winners. Okay.
Not many winners this time around. Public safety building.
Dispatcher.
Yeah.
So our next discussion will be April 10th. We'll bring this back with some of the feedback that you give us, but we'll also be talking about utility rates and the needs there. So that will be part of our discussion on the 10th.
Any other questions for Director Roy?
Find
Okay.
more money?
Let's just find more money. That's what we,
I'll go pick
that's
some
your
rocks up
job.
and look underneath.
Find us revenue, so it's, okay. Thank you, that ends that. I have one, need to back up here a little bit. Do you want a roll call vote on 2018-019 if we do have a roll call, which was found in the stack? Would you like that roll
The
call vote?
surplus
You're
vehicle.
fine, you don't.
Okay, we're good. You can just, I think we all agreed on it there, so.
You're
And you
okay.
were correct, it was, but you didn't have it marked with a blue sticky, so it was lost.
Failed.
So- Failed again, so anyway, so. Okay, let's review our April 10th council meeting agenda.
So, right now, we talked in our work session, we'll of course go over the agenda. We have a handful of new employees. We'd like to bring them and introduce them to you. We'll do that in the work session. We'll have further discussion on the fiscal year 19 budget in the work session. And then we have the city's responsibility for school safety. I think, Todd, you asked about that
Yeah, thank you.
a few weeks ago. We knew we were going to have a fairly decent-sized agenda tonight, so we pushed that back.
Okay, that's great, thanks.
I've also put staff business on the work session that if we get to that point, then we can take care of staff business before we get, but that's only if we have enough time to do it. And then on our regular meeting, we have Strawberry Days, the new royalty that was just crowned a few weeks ago, will be here to introduce themselves. Center Stage will be coming as they're preparing for their performance at the end of April. They usually come to council member and do a musical number for us. And then we have recognizing Drew Armstrong as a Planning Commission member, recognition of our neighborhood chairs as we revamp that position. We've reached out to them. And we want to recognize them and thank them for their service.
Gus, speaking of that,
Yeah.
where are we at with the new program?
So we haven't started talking about the new program yet.
Is that something that you and David are working on, or who's kind of taking
It'll
over?
be
Is that
me and
Lindsay?
probably Chief Smith and Lindsay.
Okay.
Is we're going to have the emergency.
What's
management.
kind of the goal date to get that up and going, or at least organized?
We on my list of things, that is a little bit further on the
Okay.
priority list. So we can bump that up and take a look at that, but we don't have a particular date in
Okay.
which we're hoping to have that done. And then we have recognition of Team Member of the Year, and then proclamation for Arbor Day, and then our grant application for the Utah County Municipal Grant. There'll probably be a couple more things. We'll have some
We'll
of
have
the...
that ordinance and resolution that we talked about tonight on the transportation utility fee on that agenda, unless you guys want to move it someplace else.
And then we will be meeting at the rec center. The library will be under renovation. The classrooms we're hoping to get were already booked, so we will be in the multipurpose room for the 10th and the 17th. When we had our open house, they put a sign up where they lifted weights and told them not to drop weights. So if you remember that night, I don't think we had a problem with people dropping weights. So we'll put that sign back up, just letting them know from 5 o'clock on, they can't
Drop weight.
drop weights.
I had a question, and I brought this up in the past about the work session. Is the work session required by state law, or is it something every city does, or not necessarily? Some do, some don't.
Most cities have a work session in some format.
Like I said, I brought this up in the past. Like today when we were discussing, the public safety, I feel there's residents that want to come to the regular council meeting at 6, and we go into a lot of detail. And I feel that should be for the council meeting. And so I guess I'm trying to understand again, and I've been doing this now for 6 years, but the purpose of the work session, if we're going to go into that much detail, should that be reserved for a council meeting? And what really is the purpose of the work session? If it's just to go over the agenda, is that, because we're doing that right now. So do we really need a work session? And if we do, is it appropriate to go into a lot of detail if that item's coming up on the agenda when people are coming and then we don't go into that much detail as we do in the work session? I just want to make sure we're being transparent for people who don't come to the work session but then come to the council meeting and have now missed that information because we went into a lot of detail in the work session.
Yeah. I think the intent, so we used to have the work sessions every other week.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have council meeting, work session, council meeting, work session. And then couple of years ago, we said, let's drop that last work session because we're spending a lot of time, which is fine, but that was the decision to reduce our meetings and have that specific work session in that manner.
Didn't we actually eliminated work sessions?
I think we brought...
We had a time where we were doing 4 city council meetings. And
we eliminated one.
Yes, so we had no work sessions, we were doing all city council meetings. Yeah, so the idea was, because the purpose of the work session is to have certain discussions that may or may not pertain to whatever's on the council agenda for action. So sometimes it's just, we need, the school safety thing, we're just going to talk school safety, there's not an action item. But generally speaking, when you have the work session, it's to go over the agenda and have the council have an understanding of what's going on. In some cities, they do all of the explanation in the work session, and they'll do longer work sessions, and then their council meetings go real quick because they just introduce the item and take action. And so for those, if people want to participate in that part of it, then they come to the work session.
But the problem is they really can't participate because none of that's a public hearing.
Well, but to that point, if they come to the work session and they see what's going on, then, for instance, like our public safety building, that was not a public hearing. But if somebody wanted to comment now in the council meeting in open session, they now have the information to comment.
But now it's just one more meeting for them to go to. I'm just saying, are we making this easier for the public to attend and be part of and be transparent? I don't know. That's just what, and I asked this a couple years ago too because I felt like we were giving too much information, going into too much detail. A lot of people weren't attending because there's no public hearing, there's no open session. They really can't be involved. And then by the time we get to the council meeting, what's left?
Whether that's a transparency issue, that's city council decision. I'm just talking the nuts and bolts of how we've been doing it. And so the way we did it today is pretty typical. You go over the information. There are certain things you're going to take action on later in the meeting and other things you aren't. I know it sounds like we had a resident here that wanted the details on public safety, did not realize that that's what we were covering in the work session. So either part of that is a training of our public that you need to come at 5 now instead of 6 if you want the details, or it's online. They can view it online if they choose to do it that way. But that's up to you guys. If that makes you uncomfortable how we're doing it, we'll work at your direction if you want to change up how we're doing it.
See, Sid, in a public works, in a work session, we don't take any input from the public.
Correct.
But if we have it before, then they can come up and give us input at the first of the council meeting on what transpired and comment on what we worked on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That was an advantage instead of having to wait till the next week to come in.
Yeah.
If they
can do it all in one night.
Yeah.
So I'll speak up. I'm an advocate of work sessions, just because it gives us the opportunity to work through some issues or get questions answered. And then when we get actually to the agenda, we're able to properly flow through that. And you know, we also have the opportunity to work with the citizens and answer their questions on those when we have the work session. On the side, we're able to answer those questions too. So there are other avenues that we can answer questions to the citizens.
I just think it's important for the public to see us work through the problems in a regular council meeting, because that's what they are coming to council meeting for. I don't necessarily think that needs to be done in a work session. I don't know. I just don't think we should go into so much detail sometimes in a work session, because that just makes the public have to go to one more meeting, and it's listed in detail on the agenda for a reason, and so then they can come and participate in the regular council meeting.
So maybe one solution to this is they're getting ready to make, when they're getting ready to make the agenda, maybe we take a look at it and say, we would love to have this discussion actually in council meeting. And then
If it's a detailed
so,
topic.
and maybe if we're talking to certain people that have that are specific about a certain topic, maybe that's what we say, okay, no, let's hold this one back off to a council meeting.
That's fine. What I'm trying to prevent is someone coming and watching us, and I don't even have an example of when we've done this, but hurry and go through the city council agenda when everything's been discussed beforehand. I want them to see us doing our business in public and discussing and debating and going back and forth. I want to have as much of that done in the public eye with as many people here as possible than not.
Well, that's why we invite them to the work session, Sid.
Yeah.
I just don't know if a lot of people will or can attend, but we can certainly invite them.
Yeah.
Well, they are invited.
Yeah, always, absolutely.
And then broadcast it.
I guess in my mind, that's part of the education of the public, that if they want the detailed information, then it's available for them to come at 5 or watch online. I mean, they can watch online, and it's streaming. So the information's there. The public will be able to watch the discussion. Because I think to Sid's point, if that's something, then let's just move our work session back to 6 o'clock. Now, I don't know how everybody feels about that, but that.
And the council meeting at 7?
In a lot of ways,
I'm good at the 5 o'clock time.
In a lot of ways, the nuts and bolts is really the same. It's just we've now moved it up to 5 o'clock instead of 6.
The time isn't the issue. It's because I brought this up before a couple of years ago. It's just I don't want to go into too much detail to where we're not doing that kind of business in a regular council meeting, which is the purpose of a regular council meeting. Yes, we should be discussing and working through the items, but we also want to save some of those details for when the general public is here.
I think if I could maybe mitigate that, I think I would say if there's, and I would kind of maybe ask the city to help us with this, if there's a lot of detail, like today we're going through a lot of detailed budgets, maybe save that for the city council, because I think that took a lot of time, and the city probably is very interested. However, now maybe the devil's advocate on my own statement, that information is online anyway at 5 o'clock and recorded and saved. Unfortunately, we didn't have many people here tonight when we were talking about some pretty important things. I'm hoping people were watching online, but
it was surprising.
It was very surprising.
Also for tonight, just so you understand, part of the reason we did it in detail, I didn't want them to have to sit through what I anticipated was going to be a 2-hour public hearing.
Which wasn't.
Yeah. Which wasn't. That was part of my thinking, is let these guys come and present so they can go home.
That's
they didn't have to
that's
stay
good
till
thought,
8 o'clock.
Scott. That's a great thought.
That's a good
And
point.
so there's a balance there.
Yeah.
Because they needed to be here for the detail portion of that, but I was trying to keep them from having to stay all night.
Makes a lot of sense. All right.
I will say this, that when we were not having work sessions, or we had no, there was a time when we didn't have work session. It was just 4 city council meetings.
Well, so here's the thing. I don't remember specifically doing away with the work sessions. What happened is we evolved into actually conducting
Taking
a regular
action.
city council meeting and taking action every week, instead of how it was supposed to be was 2 weeks you're taking action, 2 weeks you're discussing and meeting and talking, right? Or getting presentations.
And I'm remembering specifically
a moment where we literally did away with the work session, and then we made it so that every single item we could
You know what,
we
that-
could comment on.
That is right. We went away from work sessions, we went to every single meeting, that you could,
And
us council meeting, and then we did
problem-
away with one council meeting and made,
And the problem is that we would have an item that I really just wanted to discuss.
Mhm.
And so for that reason, I love the work session. I love just actually having some facts presented and actually getting a chance to just discuss.
Sorry, and part of what we discussed, a couple of months ago was, let's try this out.
Yeah.
And I think that's, we got to try this out for a while.
Discovery phase, let's ride with it for a little bit longer.
well, it's not really any different than we've been doing, it's just on a different, it's just a different time, which
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah.
It's just my same concern, especially after I felt like we just went into a lot of detail on something that people were coming for at 6 o'clock. Historically, a lot of people haven't come to work sessions.
Yeah.
They just don't. One, because they can't talk. They can't really participate in that way. There's no open session. There's no public hearing. Historically, they just don't come. So I'm just saying, if we want them to be involved and transparent, I don't mind discussing the items, so I have more information myself, but I just want to make sure a lot of those details, budgetary items are discussed in an open council meeting.
Well, I think we're being transparent because we're discussing it in a public forum and on the camera, everything, that people get to watch us to have this discussions back and forth. And so I think there's,
And I think there's a learning curve, so I think we'll get better.
Well, whether we have it every other week, a work session every other week, or just the same night, it's the same.
It's the
Well, I
same-
think we ought to
same
just try,
format.
let's keep on
So
this and see.
staff,
where it
we'll
goes.
move in the direction you want to go, so.
Keep going.
Keep
Well,
going.
Keep going.
I think to address to the
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it does say that we're going to go over the agenda, so, it didn't explicitly say that. And I think what Tina's saying is we can be a little more specific about what items we're going to.
That maybe that's what I'm
That
looking
would
for.
solve
Yeah,
your problem.
maybe.
Yeah.
I agree with
Then they
that.
would know we're talking about this. at
Yes,
6 o'clock,
that-
show up
And
if
we
you
could
wanna
broadcast
know.
that.
That would help, and say if you're very interested, we're going to be just discussing this before regular council. Okay, maybe
a
that's
good
probably
point.
what it
That's
is.
a good point.
Because when it just says the agenda, okay,
what you're saying.
thank you, yes. Got it.
We good? Okay, let's move on to, item 13, the mayor and council business. Let's start with staff here, because we missed that. You got anything for us, Dion?
Yeah, so if you noticed on social media today, they even posted that downtown park's going to be closed. It's fenced off completely, just letting no access. That includes the new splash pad, right?
Yeah, with the culvert pipes.
Install it. Yeah.
Natural. A natural.
If you turn the water on now, it'll be a splash pad, okay?
If it comes on now, definitely a splash pad.
Okay, chief?
We were finally able to fill our 2 full-time positions that we've been missing for several months. And so we've got 2 brand-new guys on. They're just in their second week of orientation and an academy, and then they'll go on a shift next week. So we're glad to have them.
So brand new, like right out of the academy?
They have a little bit of experience. They have all their fire certs.
Sure.
That's something. One of them has been a wildland guy
That's a
for a
good
long
thing.
time. For
Good.
several years, and so that's always good for us. We're getting more and more involved in the wildland stuff, and so it's good to have some people with experience. So
That's great.
That's good.
Great, thanks, chief.
Hey, what does the PD have for us?
We have some new people as well. We've had 3 openings. We've hired 2 full-time, 1 from county and 1 from UVU. So there'll be, the one from county's, he's on and working, going through the FTO program, the field training, and I expect that one from UVU will be here pretty quick, probably sometime this week. And then they're still trying to make a decision on the 3rd, interviewing people and doing that process. So.
Oh, so we're finding some warm bodies out there then, huh?
Yeah, and some good ones. Yeah, I think these guys will work out really well.
Good. Marty?
We also have a new office administrative assistant up front, Public Works. She started yesterday, and we also have a new engineer starting in 2 weeks.
What's her name?
Rhea Hanna.
Okay, I'll stop by.
Yep, she'll be in on the 10th.
She'll be here in 2 weeks.
Okay.
We'll do an
Are we going to
introduction.
have all of the new hires come in 2
As
weeks?
many as we can get in here, yes.
Good.
Okay.
Love it.
So you can meet them.
So,
Perfect.
just a quick update on First East. You should be seeing cones going up. Again, they're going to have 6 crews working on First East for the next quite a while. So it's going to be portioned up all the way from here to there. So
They're starting south?
they're starting.
State?
Well, they're starting
Different
everywhere.
places.
But they will be starting on from State Street to Second South immediately with the water line. They're going to be starting up at 2600 North with the sewer line. So most of our utilities are the first things that will go in. So we'll be heavily involved immediately with all those things. So.
Marty, I had a Strawberry Days meeting yesterday, and they were guaranteed that the parade route would be fine at the carnival, and during the time of Strawberry Days week, there's not going to be any construction in that area. Is that true?
Who guaranteed it?
That's not
Both Tina and Scott are shaking their head.
Lisa, someone told Lisa that. I don't know who I can get a name.
Well, no, we need to have.
Because if that's the case, we need to do some major planning, like now. But if they can work around that, they told her, and I don't know who they is.
It was Dion.
It was not me, but I emailed her after our director's meeting, and she told me the same exact thing. Don't worry about it. She has it under.
Well, because I think someone had told her, though, that during the week of Strawberry Days, there would be no construction from, this area of town going on
We
First East.
have told all of the contractors multiple times when they were bidding this, and then also in our pre-construction and last week's construction progress meeting, of the dates, the concerns, and those things, saying that we're still kind of working through parade routes, carnival, all of that other stuff, that will give them more information. Maybe she's talking with the public involvement person at the project. That's totally fine. It's not that we're saying that it can't happen. It's just saying that I have not received a commitment from the contractor that that's going to happen.
When could we get that, though?
I don't know. We can
Because,
start
like-
moving towards that direction to talk with them about what they're expecting where they're expecting to be in the next 2 months.
I mean, just because the booklet's coming out and they have to have the parade map, they have to have, locations of events. It's like in the next 2 weeks that booklet is coming out, and it has to be
Does she
pretty
have the
firm.
parade route in the
Yeah.
booklet? Oh.
Mm-hmm. Like children's
We
parade,
talked
regular
about it
parade.
at director's meeting today, and I think we just need to make some determinations on the direction that it needs to go, so we can tell the contractor where they need to make sure it's up and ready for the activities that are going to be held there. But
Okay.
to say that there's not going to be any construction on First East, for 6 or 8 blocks, I'm not sure about that. But as far as the parade route, things like that, they might be able to work through those things for sure, because they're fully aware of our Strawberry Days and all of the things that go on with that. So they've been told multiple times. So.
Do we know where the carnival is going to set up?
Carnival's going to stay downtown, and we're going to have to work with maybe road closure, Main Street or something.
Park and Road.
Well, Park for sure.
Mhm.
But normally Main Street stays open. We're likely going to close Main
Road,
Street.
yeah.
We got to work with UTA because they got a bus stop there. But again, it's going to be for a week. So we're actively engaged in working through these details. We talked parade route today. We have an alternative we think that works as far as that's concerned, and we need to communicate that. I think that's what Dion's saying. He reached out to Lisa so that we can keep that communication going with Strawberry Days. But
Cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a painful year, honestly. In First East, it's going to go all the way through October, and it's going to be dug up from one end to the other, and alternate routes, detours, things of that nature.
Is this going to be PG first and then Cedar Hills, or is PG
Again,
through October?
They've got 6 crews, so utilities are going to start. That's going to be a couple months of utilities, and then they're doing a full road excavation for the entire. It's full reconstruction all the way through Pleasant Grove up to really the Murdoch Canal crossing, and so all of that is going to take a lot of time and effort and detouring and one ways and and signals and things of that nature is what they're talking about. So it's going to be tough to get up through that. When it gets done, it's going to be beautiful, nice, but it's going to be painful for the next 10 months. So.
So like giving
I guess 8
birth,
months.
it's that 9 months,
Yeah.
and then it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Until they turn 2.
Well, of all the times you drove on 7th South, then it's just a lot bigger project than 7th South. So that's what we're looking at.
But it's going to be nice.
That's great. Well, thanks for coordinating all that.
Daniel?
I'll jump in the train. We also have a new employee, a new assistant, planning and zoning assistant. She will be here in a couple of weeks, and her name is Kelly Evans. Kelly Evans. And yeah, thanks for your patience today. Thank you.
Hey Daniel, Scott and I talked about, but on our next meeting with Drew, we also have Jennifer we need to recognize.
Jennifer Baptista.
I got in touch with her at the same time as everyone else, and she decided to skip that. So it was her desire not to do it.
So we'll send her a plaque in the mail
Okay.
or drop it
All
off
right.
or something.
So, force.
Well, they took all my thunder, and now you know what I do.
Anything else for you from Denise?
No. I don't have any new hires, and that's a good thing.
Nothing
else?
for me.
Your prosecutor's desk,
Okay.
though.
We're laughing. I have no idea what the crap.
Okay, we'll move to the council. Diana?
Yeah, I was mostly just interested in how we were going to organize Strawberry Days. We had the most delightful ribbon cutting in structure,
very nice.
2 floors, and we just call it Daniel's building. I'm sure that it St. John Properties has a hard time with that, but and then we also had a beautiful, delightful tour of Evermore Gardens, and I've wondered what was behind the wall, and I was so impressed with the quality and the vision. The hotel adjacent to that is going up nicely right now. I don't know if people drive out to the freeway at all, but there's some really, it's just fun to look at both directions. And R&R getting going, that's wonderful. Thank you, Daniel.
I've got one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Me?
Yeah, do you want to talk about last night?
I do.
Okay.
I do want to talk about last night. You know, we had a wonderful event to recognize one of our World War II veterans. A few of us were there. I know Mayor had a good talk with Gunny Renstrom. His name's Keith Renstrom, but in his World War II position, he was known as Gunny. He was a gunnery sergeant, and he's 97. And he spent the last 10 days touring and going back and being recognized in Iwo Jima, Saipan, Guam. And I've known Keith for probably 10 years. I was, anyway, common friends, and went and spent some time in his basement when he lived in Orem. And walked in the parade with him, and he's an unbelievable man. A lot of history. If you haven't met him, just stop by. He's a wonderful, a wonderful man. But more important, he deserves our respect for the liberty that he fought for all of us in World War II. And we're kind of in a sad time because within the next 10 years. There's not going to be any left. And I feel bad for my kids that aren't going to. We've got to remember it's our responsibility to remind them what World War II was like, and make sure that we don't have any more wars like that. So wonderful event. So thanks for those that were there, and thanks to Gunny Renstrom for all he does.
Yeah, it was Fox News and Channel 5 Well, they did a great job.
Yeah, we had Follow the Flag. Kyle Fox was there with a big flag, and we had 97 flags that were posted to represent 97 years of his life. And we had a police escort, so thank you to the police department for providing that. It was a wonderful night.
I hope I'm in that good a shape in 97 if I live that long. Yeah, he doesn't look 97, so anyway,
Yeah, can you imagine 97 spending 10 days flying all over the world? That's a lot of flights. Yeah.
Sid.
And one thing last night, I mean, I can barely remember what I had for breakfast, but he remembered details from the war of this Japanese girl, the dress she wore, the sounds going on, like every sense of this memory, which shows you the effects of war, but he remembered all of that. And he said, like, the imprint of her hand and his, I mean, he still remembered this at the age of 97. So
yeah, he's got an incredible memory, and even his short-term memory. Typically when you get a little bit older, your short-term memory, but he's a sharp man. He's a sharp man.
It just shows you what war will do. But speaking of the flag, this Friday at the Pleasant Grove High School is the Follow the Flag premiere. It's $5 a person unless you're a veteran. Veterans and their families are free. And it's a fundraising event to help with Follow the Flag costs, upcoming costs and events. And just come, and it's a documentary that KSL helped produce, and they'll be showing that. It's probably about an hour long. So it will be a fun, if it's a date night or you want to bring your family, just come and...
Will you put an event out on your Facebook page? That'd be great.
Do you know if people can attend, do they have like a donations page?
Yes, they do.
On their Facebook
On the
page?
Follow the Flag Facebook page. Yeah, and they have a special presentation, I believe, that night too for our police and fire. So chiefs, or I know the chief's not here, but if you want to invite your men to come and some of your employees, please invite them at no charge, and they have a special presentation. But they just are in need of some additional funds for causes they want to give to, but also it does cost to if they need to repair the flag or store it and just things like that for their annual costs. So yeah, please come.
On top of that, just one thing, that this is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger for July, that week of July 4th. I know I've said this before, but the parking lot we have just hills of dirt. Is there any way to just make it so people can sit on the hills that are surrounding that parking lot at the top of Grove Creek?
So there's portions of that. And then also North Utah County Water Conservancy District and Forest Service. Forest Service holds the majority of that property, so it's doable. We would just need to get their clearance and those types of things.
Because I'm thinking we just need to expect a lot of people. So anyway.
Eric.
The library elevator is getting really close, so thank you to Daniel and St. John's Properties. I don't know if there's a date, but...
It is April 28th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'm on the library board, so...
Okay, good.
Mark your calendars, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. that day. There's going to be events every hour, ribbon cutting in the morning, so Mayor, we'll need you there to say a few words.
Thank you.
So anyway, yeah, get ready for that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And then again, you're going to hear Choose Kindness. If you walk into any school now in Pleasant Grove, you're going to see the Choose Kindness PG banners that are up hanging in the school and presented. So
awesome.
Lynn.
I had the opportunity to be with Sid in the Strawberry Days meeting, and can be glad to report to you how under control they have things. What a great job that Lisa's doing, and I don't think you're going to have to worry. You're going to have to worry about Marty's stuff. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But
everything
I don't
else
think
is
you're going to have to
covered.
worry about anything
No.
with Strawberry Days and the Queen contest. We haven't met since that went on, and you were awesome.
So, Yeah, he just.
He was fourth attendant.
I won the worst presenter. So, well, and I put you on the hook there. Well, we need to step up a little more there. I was kind of reading too fast down to the thing there. And in the third attendant, I gave her $9,000 scholarship.
She was excited.
At least it was the right girl.
They just about came out of their shoes when you said that.
But a lot of the parents come up to me and says, you know, you need to change it.
Yeah.
It needs to come up.
That's just to cover their dresses.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, we got 15 minutes for you, Kathy.
Oh, well, I just need this plat signed.
We got a plat to get signed there.
Daniel is waiting for it.
Oh. So. Guess we better sign it.
No one stays that long for no reason. Well, I guess we have other. We have our diehards.
Okay, anything we need to review on the calendar? I think we've touched everything. If not, no.
Make a motion to adjourn.
No, wait a minute, just a minute. Well, okay, we'll do a motion to adjourn and I'll catch it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
I have a second. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned, thank you. So, what do you want me to attend here?